head of investor relations for Project Wilbur. Essentially, my job is to sell companies to investors. So when we talk about this topic specifically, I absolutely love it. I'll be very opinionated on what we're actually talking about here. So,
and I'm John. I'm the CRO for Project Wilbur. We've been doing working with startups, but also larger companies for. Well, I've been doing it for a long time, but Project Wilbur's been doing it for 4 years, so we're very versed in sales, if you will. You want to hit the next one?
Sure.
So that's us. So what's Project Wilbur? So basically, we're a consulting group. We have 3 main areas that we focus on. One is basically the consulting, general consulting. That means investor relations, fixing companies. We're fixers for a lot of investors. So investor will hire us. I invested in the startup. It's going sideways. Please take a look at it, and we'll do that, and we'll fix it. So that's how we got started. Through that, we built a dev shop. The dev shop's based in Latin America, so we have software development. We've got many developers, so we're able to actually provide all the services that are needed there. And then we have a marketing division, so we work with several different marketing agencies that are relevant for each type of business. So we have ones that are great for large-scale businesses that need more complex PR components, and then ones that are more e-commerce related and CPG plays. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? If you want to scale, you got to learn how to sell. All right, so basically when you guys are thinking about sales, everybody's thinking that's that guy that's trying to sell you a deal, go to get a car, or, oh, you're a sales guy, stop talking to me. Like, that's what most people are thinking about when they're thinking about a sales guy, especially when you're an engineer or you're a CTO. You're like, I don't want to deal with the sales guy. And you need the sales. It has to happen. Otherwise, the business doesn't grow. It doesn't exist. It won't happen. And at any stage, right? And everybody at that company should be part of that process. Go to the next one. All right, so this, co-founders, who's got a co-founder? All right, who's ever had to, like as a founder or C-level person, who's had to bring people into the fold and try to get them excited about whatever the business is that you're doing? Yeah, it's at first it's exciting, and then you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm trying to pitch. I got to get my message down. These things can be a challenge, so you're the number one sales guy when you're hiring people. Right? As a recruiter, you have to push that envelope. Every time I've hired a sales team, I have to get them excited about the money that they're going to make, the opportunity that's before them. If I bring in a co-founder, and I've co-founded 2 of my own things. One worked, one didn't. But both of them had 4 co-founders. And getting 3 other people excited about what I thought was exciting. Actually, I only had to do 2 on one of them because 2 of us came up with it together. That's not easy, and you also, and it's listed here, investors, right? When you're selling to an investor. You're selling to the client, who's also an investor. They're giving you money, right, to like do the service. That's an investment into your company. But it's also, if you go raise capital, you got to be able to be compelling enough. You got to be passionate enough. You got to be a storyteller. There's what's the guy that was on Shark Tank with the cowboy shirt? Chris Sacca?
Yeah, that guy.
So he said, if you're going to scale, you have to be the best storyteller, which is just another way of saying you're a sales guy or gal or person, if we're not pronouncing it up. So your ability to be convincing matters, right? In everything that you do. Think about, forget sales for a second. Forget that close. Think about the last time you asked somebody out, right? And for me, it was 22 years ago. But I had to convince her, and it was a pain because she said no a lot. But I went through that process, and I convinced her because I'm tenacious, but also because I made a good argument, and I also tricked her a lot, which was great, and it worked out.
It's called nurturing the sale.
I nurtured the sale
for 20 years.
Yes, exactly. So these are all very compelling points. You have to think about how you're going to keep that client happy. and for 22 years, it's been a challenge. Next one. So, and I'm not going to talk this whole time. You can start talking in a minute.
No, for sure. You're doing great.
Thanks, man. So when you sell your vision and you're going through your co-founders, you want to get them as excited as you are about whatever it is, right? But it's not just co-founders. Like, let's say you're a solo founder, right? You have to be able to convince the employees or the vendors or the advisors. Like, they all have to care enough to want to help. And in most of the time, they're helping without getting paid, right? So these are all very important things to consider when you're having that conversation. Framing the opportunity. Does anybody know like the easiest way to do that? Anybody? Yes. Say it one more time. That's right. So listening, right? So you want to frame the opportunity in a way that very simply addresses three things, right? And you'll see this throughout this deck. I don't want to go too much into that, but you want to identify the problem, which is the opportunity, right? So you want to identify the problem, make sure you're showcasing the opportunity. You want to make sure that your solution, again, problem solution, is very clear and easy to understand, that nobody has a hard time figuring out what that means. And then you want to make sure you have the team or the why me or the trust. Can you actually execute on the thing that you just said, right? So everything that you see about sales will point to those three things every time.
On that topic, real quick, we've all heard the statements or the sayings, right? I could sell ice to an Eskimo, or I could sell sand to the beach. These things are true. There are people out there that literally can sell you nothing, and you will walk away loving it. I always ask myself, how is that possible, right? You see a company that might have got funded, and you're like, dude, that sucks. You shouldn't have got funded. How did they do it, right? So I always ask myself, what is that person doing that's different from what I'm doing? And it literally comes down to my passion. Over my career, my years, I have my trusted network. They know when Brian is fired up over something, it's probably a good deal. But I can go, and that's one of my superhuman abilities. When I talk to somebody, you're going to walk away from this conversation saying, like, I want to know more about what that guy's doing because that sounds cool. I really like that. So anytime you're talking, whether it's your own business or you're working for somebody and you're selling their product, the passion comes through, right? You have to believe in what you're actually selling.
Right, and that's true. Not just sell. I mean, interview is selling yourself, right? I mean, not in the inappropriate way. That's illegal in Clark County, but like it is the way that you do that in an interview, right? You're pitching. This is why you should hire me, right? So when you're going through that, every single thing that we do is selling. If you want something out of it, almost every time. So, okay. So I threw this together earlier today. This is an older deck that we've used a bunch of times. So the core problem, what this means, just so we're on the same page, when you start a company and it doesn't exist, like you think it doesn't exist, you're solving a problem that's important to you. So you have to convince the people that are with you that that's important, right? When you're on a personal mission, like I have a friend that started a company because it was a oh my god, it was water purification, and he was from Flint, Michigan. He was trying to figure out how to get lead out of water, right? Hey, from Flint, there you go, cool. No, but you all right, cool, clean water. So the whole thing around that was he was passionate about clean water because he had 2 kids and he didn't want them to be having an issue, right? So he built a whole company around this. And he didn't find a co-founder, but he got a bunch of investors. And then he got a bunch of employees, and he ended up selling the company, I think, for $70 million. So not a bad deal. All of that was in the last, like, whatever, Flint, Michigan was what, 8 years ago?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So between that and I think 3 years ago he sold it, right? So he went on the journey, had an exit, because he was passionate about something. And that's how he raised the money. He cared. It was also it was trending, right? Like everybody was talking about it when the Flint thing happened. So it's a good way to get people involved. And making it personal really works. Personality types. You want to talk about that? Or you want me to go? All right. So personality types. So I'm a hybrid. I like when you're building a founding team. So I could sell, but I'm also pretty good with numbers and operations. but I'm a mess, right? So if I focus on one thing, I'm going to be way better. So we bring in people that are much better at, I've brought in people that are better at different aspects than I am. And that's my co-founding team, right? Almost every time. I'm usually the guy that heads up sales, partnerships, strategic, and, chief excitement officer sort of thing. That's me. And then I bring people in that can actually go and chase that rabbit down the hole on different aspects so that we can scale faster. And that's really important. And you have to know where your weaknesses are when you're going through this whole sales journey. Because if you don't, and you're like, I could do everything, you're going to micromanage too many things, and you'll fail, right? So you have to make sure that each time, and just full clarity, I don't know if everybody knows my history, but I've done 10 different startups, exited 5 were learning experiences. You are now getting some of that learning now, so you don't have to fail 5 times or learn 5 times. So there you go. There you go. So when you go pitch it, who's trying to get ready to pitch an investor? Okay, so when I get pitched, because I vet things for 3 family offices regularly and about 8 more past that, and then when we go raise money for other people, we always break it down really simply. I already did this for you guys, the problem solution team, but I want to break down what that means. The opportunity, this is how big the market is, right? So the problem is the opportunity. That is like, hey, this is a $30 billion problem. Right? We're addressing this because this, right? Whatever the problem is. The solution is everybody's doing it wrong. Our product's better. Let me explain, right? That's your story there. And then the mitigation of risk. Here's why you can trust me and I'll be fiduciarily responsible with your money, right? Because that's really what this is all about. You get investment because you've mitigated risk enough and they are excited enough and they believe in your product enough. So when you're raising capital, that's what you need to do. But it's the same for a client. So if you are selling something, right? They believe in the product. You're convincing them the product matters, right? And you're convincing them it solves that problem that they have, and they have trust in that product because you're telling them why they need to trust the product. Super important. So
post-pandemic, what we're seeing a lot more of too is the early stage investors. As you're closing them on the investment, chances are they already have a company that can use your product, which is why they're interested in your investment. So the best matchmaking that we're finding is not some guy that had an exit, he's sitting on $100 million and he's going to give you $5 million. It's somebody that already has a use for what you're building, that didn't think about what you're building, that is going to then invest in you, be a partner with you, and be your first customer. So the whole sales side of it, don't just look at it. The early stage sales, super important when you're looking at the money side of things, absolutely. But don't be afraid to also go on the actual sales side. I've seen cases where people are raising capital, but they instead choose not to give away the equity because they got a sale out of this group. So from day one, as John's saying, you're selling to co-founders, you're selling to everybody you're talking to, selling to investors. It's cliche, right? Always be closing, coffees for closers, all that good stuff.
That's true. Coffees for closers. Don't not say that. That's super important. So selling to employees. Why does this matter? Before I met Brian, or right when I met Brian, he brought us a deal, and I was just telling him what we did, and he brought in an opportunity. Our head of operations is, I would arguably say, an excellent operator, not the greatest sales guy.
No.
Yeah, but he's a good guy, and he's brought in a bunch of sales because he can articulate what we do, and that's important, right? Because if you can articulate what the company does in a very clean and compelling manner, like these are the problems that we solve, and this is why, everybody at your company is a salesperson, right? You ever be at a party and somebody's like, hey, you're like, hey, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. Oh, cool. Where? And what do they do there? And sometimes they're like, I do stuff, like it's complicated, I could have been your client, right? If you just said, I solved these 3 problems, it's super easy, right? Plus, when you start doing things like that, upper management notices it's a good way to get a raise. That we gave sales commissions to non-sales. I was at a company called Tilt. And we had, this is back when crowdfunding mattered, but whenever anybody brought in an IoT product for us to do a pre-sale launch on, we gave a $10,000 bonus to whoever brought that in. So pretty good motivator to motivate anybody to bring a deal in, right? So find ways to reward the staff. Just like you would with I'm sure you guys have heard of different jobs where if you bring somebody in that gets hired, you'll get a bonus. Like if the team decides to hire them. Have you guys heard of that before? No? Maybe? I see some heads nodding. All right, so that's a thing. It happens, right? So reward your staff if you have them, and if you don't, or if you work for someone and you're like, hey, they should do this, bring it up. Not everybody thinks that everybody needs to have a carrot. It's important. All right, so
I could start on this one
do
here.
it.
This is absolutely some of the most critical pieces for me on the investor relations side. When I see a company that comes in, there's a whole process that we go through, right? But one of them is traction. Absolutely, 100% guaranteed. If you have even one sale that proves someone out there sees what you're building is a problem and will lead to investor interest, right? So this part here, the validating of your actual problem through sales, it sounds simple. It sounds like, oh, hey, it's common sense. Everybody should have known that. But not everybody thinks that way. We get so tunnel visioned and not sidetracked, but focused, hyper-focused on what we're building that we forget to do these parts and go out and validate. Because, this feature that I'm thinking about is going to be the thing that everybody wants. Go sell it. Get out there and sell it to people. So, there's ways that you can go about this. There's ways that you can, a whole process, to actually get out there, whether they're focus groups, surveys, or just, you see some random group of people that looks like your target demographic at dinner and you go say hi to them and talk to them. This is absolutely critical in the early stage of sales to investors, but also for your company, right? It's going to give you so much valuable feedback.
So just to build on one thing you just said, so the interviewing the customer thing, we're going to talk about that a little bit here, but when you're starting out and you're figuring out how to sell, the more data you can present to not just an investor, but your team, when you're hiring them, like, hey, we did 100 customer surveys, right? Here's what we found out. 37% wanted this thing, right? Nobody else was even the double digits. This is the thing they wanted. Cool, you're solving a problem. You've identified a problem, you're going to start solving it. Now, how are you going to do that, right? That data is the basis of selling. We have a client right now, I can't talk about it, but I will give you a high level. We are attacking each one of their competitors, figuring out exactly what they're doing and how that works. You have to become an expert in a space if you're going to try to conquer that space. Otherwise, you're just guessing. And nobody wants to invest in a guess, right? All right, so when you're landing your first customers, this is part of the interview stuff. So you want to make sure that you're chasing down customers the right way. Like you've now identified, you've done your interviews, you've talked to different groups. You're like, hey, this kind of makes sense. And they're motivated to kind of be part of the story and to listen to what you have to say and then possibly buy what you're selling, right? Because you are solving that problem. You also have to follow up with them, right? And figure out over and over again, is this the right pitch? Because when you're selling, the pitch will change multiple times. And you have to, sorry, my kids are at a thing, so I'm just checking.
On this one here, it's this is where I come in. I'm fantastic at 0 to 1. The first customer up to $1 million. John is amazing from 1 to 10 and beyond. This is where I shine. I was saying earlier, when I get fired up over something, it is not hard for me to talk to people in my network and say, dude, you got to look at this. And I'm going to fill up your pipeline for you. There's people out there that are like me that do this for a living. Get them fired up. Learn how to sell to those people and talk to them about what you're doing. That way they're hitting the streets talking. And just a tip, it's about a 45-day average time for me from when I see something that I really like to where I start getting my network fired up, right? And then we start having the conversations. So you want to give yourself, 3-month period from when you're starting conversations with people that are hitting the streets for you, get them excited on your behalf. That way you can keep raising the money, you can keep building your platform, and they're out there talking for you. This right here, it's not rocket science, it's not hard. People make this step harder than it has to be in your business. Just talk passionately and give people opportunities. If you're talking to somebody like me, you say, dude, you make a sale, I'll give you 10%. I don't care. Like 10% of the margin. Go for it. I'll say, cool, no problem. I'll make an introduction. If something happens, great, take care of me. This right here goes back to the previous slide. You get this done, you're going to get an investment dollar.
Or the sale. So that's all positive. It mentioned discounts real quick, and then I'm going to tell a cool story. Try not to discount whenever possible, but there are different ways to motivate. That seems like a discount, but it's not a discount. So perceived value versus actual discounting. If it's a SaaS company you guys are working on, or physical product, whatever it is, you have a subscription, like pay for 12 months, we'll give you 15, like that sort of thing. That's the way to play that up, so it's a perceived value play. Just think about that, because when you start discounting, then it's a race to the bottom, and you're never going to win. Whoever's got the deepest pockets always wins the race to the bottom. Yeah.
Is that is an example like the more seats, the lower the rate per seat?
Sort of, except when you start. So let's say SaaS, right? Let's just use the biggest SaaS player that most people know, Salesforce. It's massive, right? They have not really discounted their seats. They discount based on volume, and they have wiggle room, but like it doesn't cost them $1,500 a year for you to have a seat. It doesn't cost them $500 a year for you to have a seat. It's like $30 of hosting, right? And then maybe the support for that is like maybe $200 more for that one seat. So they have a lot of margin, and they play with that a lot. Plus, they've got the marketplace that they play with. So they take a slice of every platform play that's in there, right? So the more you discount, the less you're worth to the customer, right? So you want to make sure you don't discount if you don't have to. It's important. But you also don't want to be overpriced. There's a rule of thumb. Y Combinator, Michael, God, what is his name? What?
Seibel?
Yes, Michael Seibel. I always forget his last name. So he did a story about pricing, or TED Talk or something on pricing, where you raise, I think it's, and I might have the numbers off, it'll be close. You raise 10% every 2 weeks until you notice that you have a dip near 20%. Once you have that dip, then you've hit the right pricing and you start scaling back, right? So good rule of thumb, look it up. I'm probably wrong on the numbers, like where they go, but it's something like that. So let's go to the next one. It's story time. So I was head of biz dev at Cafe Press, and they hired me from a company that I just finished exiting called Small Town, that was acquired by a Yelp distributor. We were a competitor of Yelp. And I was a sales guy. I built a sales team there. We had 4 guys. I was excited. And then we sold, and I didn't want to go to Yelp because I hated Yelp. So I got hired by a company called Cafe Press. They hired me to be a sales guy and build a sales team. And after a month, and I sold a little bit, but I was like, this is stupid. We have a factory. Why don't we have a catalog? I'm like showing people online, and there's 100,000 salespeople in PPAI that sell stuff, right? So let's become a channel partner with those guys and give them a catalog. And we did $5 million in 6 months after the catalog was done. So I'm pointing this out to you because sometimes sales is not one-to-one. Sometimes it's one-to-many, but sometimes it's through a channel, right? So figure out the problem that you're solving. Nobody in the entire PPI world was offering a one-product solution. They could buy one of something, right? You could buy 12 of something, you could buy 50 of something, but you couldn't buy one of something. You couldn't buy 5 of something. You couldn't buy 100 of something with a bunch of different names on the back. We could. So we conquered that space in a very short period of time. So that was a lot of fun. So that's something to think about. Click. You want to talk about this one?
Here it is. This is my daily life. So again, let's take a couple of questions on this, because there was a bunch of hands, more than normal, that went up for people who are actually raising right now. So who was it again that's raising for their business? What kind of problems are you facing in the sale to the investors? You guys getting a bunch of no's? Is everybody getting yeses? Bunch of no's, right? Why? What do you
Sell a complex product, so it's kind of hard to explain to investors in a really short amount of time.
That's the key thing there. We'll go right back to the sales, right? You got to be able to sell, whether it's a product, your business, yourself, to either a child or your grandmother, right? And so when it is too complex, investors' heads will blow. Sometimes they're super technical, but honestly, I don't know if you really want them as your early investor. They might not see things the way you do and try to take it over. So the simplest thing is to try to take the most it's not easy, it's hard. And sometimes people like John and I, where we don't know the complexity of what you're building, we're able to read something and say, oh, you're doing this, and repeat it back to you in a sentence that's for the layman's, right? Because I'm sure I'm not as smart as you in what you're trying to do, right? So any other problems that are being faced selling to your investors? What are the reasons everybody else is getting no's? Have you been asking? Why no? That's part of the sale too, right? Like
Asking is really important. You go through a pitch, you go through 5 meetings, and nobody goes, hey, so what are your thoughts? Do you want to invest? Like, it's a really simple sentence. Ask for the no, right? It's better to get a no or a yes. Well, it's better to get obviously it's better to get a yes, but it's better to get a no than a maybe. Or let me give you a bunch of homework assignments, right? How many of you have gotten that? Like, hey, I'd like you to do these 6 or 7 tasks before I see you again. Anybody? Yeah? All right. There you go. It happens, right? You look like you were about to ask me something. No? No? All right. So when you guys are going through the pitches and you're having these conversations and you don't ask, hey, do you want to invest? The other way to do that is there anything that makes you say no or maybe, right? So you're not asking for the yes, you're asking for why is it a no or why is it a maybe, and then you're not worried about being rejected, you're just getting data, right? Lots of ways to get what you want.
so much. And there's a little, as you go, right? Everybody learns little tips, tricks. One of the sayings that I learned actually from this guy right here made a lot of sense. When you ask for money, you get advice. When you ask for advice, you get money. So on the investor side, feel free to ask them for advice. Dude, I bombed that pitch. Product's really great. I believe in it. Like, what did I do wrong? What could I do better, right? Or even just when you're sharing it with them, what do you think about this? I'm going to talk to people about this. What do you think about this? And sometimes I do that on the actual product sales side. We're working with a client. They've got a really cool product that's going to be coming out in the logistics industry. I went to a different deal that I'm working on and said, hey, one of my people are looking at doing this. What do you think of this? And they said, shit, dude, we could buy one of those right now. Like, are they ready to go? I said, yes. So we're going to make a sale for them, right? Ask people's opinions rather than just coming in hard, guns blazing. You want to buy something from me? Everybody's trying to sell something, right? We all are. Nobody wants to buy from random strangers. So ask for opinions, ask for advice, and oftentimes over the journey, you will end up getting their dollars.
So one last thing, you don't always have to do this when you're selling a product to somebody. Like, you know, if the product is being charged at whatever the market will bear, you don't have to justify the price all the time. But when you're raising money, you want to say where the money's going, right? So you think about it like when, if you've ever been through a remodel or something like that, what you get is a list of what everything costs, each individual item, right? So you understand, like, all right, so the grass costs this, the deck in the backyard costs that, and the contractor's going to break it all out in a line item. Investors want to see that. They want to know where their money's going. They want to know it's going to operations, sales, marketing, etc., so that they can understand that. So when you do go to raise, make sure you have answers as to where that dollar is going, or each dollar.
And it's not to cars and dinners and trips.
I got a story
They
about
don't
that.
like that.
There's a fun story. It's a fun story. Covered a lot of this. This is a kind of repeat. All right, so we talked about common objections. All right, so there's a couple on here that are really important. I'm just going to say it out Whenever you say we don't have competition, if I ever get pitched and we don't have competition, I immediately stop listening, like for a minute. And I always go like, why? Like how on earth, like, cause there's always a business that can fall into whatever you're doing, right? Instagram didn't have competition per se, but they could have, right? They got acquired by Facebook. And then when Snapchat was trying to conquer that space and they got a bunch of users, Facebook tried to buy them, right? Technically, they didn't have a direct competitor doing the whole disappearing image, but then Facebook started offering that through Instagram. When Zuckerberg couldn't buy whatever it is, Snapchat, right? The same thing happened with Musical.ly, which later became TikTok. And they tried to buy that too, and that didn't work either, right? So they started having the feeds going through Instagram again, because that's the mobile app. These things happen all the time. Box, is it Box or Dropbox? One of them, Steve Jobs tried to buy for like 3 years. I don't remember which one it was. There's a whole movie, or not movie, there's a series on it as to how they kept pushing back, and then they went IPO on their own. There's a bunch of stories through Silicon Valley that's all about that. I've been in a couple of those companies, and it's something worth studying. You guys should read, or listen. You should listen to the first season of Masters of Scale, which Reid Hoffman talks about a lot of this stuff. But you should also read. I've said this before, but Jim Collins, Good to Great and Great by Choice, both of those, super helpful around sales and planning. So that's important. Anybody know what Tam Sam Sam is? Okay, a few of you. So know that. Also know unit economics, which is tied to that, meaning like what the thing costs, what it costs to sell it for, because then you can point to, if you give me $1 million, I know I can spend it because here's my return of ad spend and my customer acquisition cost is X. Ready to answer numbers. Don't go into a meeting with an investor and be like, the generic numbers that you need to know, you don't know. And then you have to go back and be like, oh, I'll follow up with you. They're not going to follow up with you. They might be nice and give you some feedback, but they're not going to, because you should know those numbers going in. And the reason why, it's not that they're being rude. It's that you have to be able to raise money from other people besides them. So when you get a check from one guy, usually that guy believes you can raise money from other guys or gals or persons, right? Like it's irrelevant. Doesn't really matter. Like you just chase the rabbit down the appropriate hole.
We're focusing a lot on investors, but you could take all of these and put it into a product sale, right? It doesn't matter what you're selling. You have to know unit economics. You have to know the industry. You have to know the market, or else you're not going to know. To your point, you got to listen to your customer, right? So when you're getting these objections, if you understand the market, if you understand the numbers, you probably will already understand their problem, and you're not going to be getting some of these objections. The objections you'll get, if you are armed to the teeth with all the information you have, it's literally going to come down to relationships. They might just have we've been working with these guys for 10 years. I love them. They don't drop, they're a little pricey. Things could be better. They do a good job. That's going to be the challenge to overcome, which is a whole other hurdle. But, do yourself a favor and understand all of the numbers, everything about your industry, your market. That's just going to give you the best foot forward, the best chance at closing a sale.
So, best way to overcome objections is testimonials, data points, things you can point to that actually support whatever your point is, right? Like people like you have, I don't know, let's say doctor's office. Doctors like you have used our service and seen a 3x return on XYZ thing, right? Or 10% less complaints because of Y, right? When you use percentage numbers, you should use factual ones, but when you use them, people pay more attention, right? So get the numbers, like do the data. It's okay to do a white paper and spend a little time doing that. You don't like break out your day to where you're just selling all day. That won't be effective. It will not be an effective use of your time. You have to be an expert in whatever you're doing and whatever you're selling, right? Otherwise, you're just going to meander, and that's bad. You want to do this one?
Yeah, sure. What he was saying at the end there is what I see is a lot of problems with early stage sales or people who are just getting into the sales side, right? A lot of us as entrepreneurs, we might not be the best salespeople. We might be on the tech side, we might be operational, we might have this great, crazy dream and vision and lead the team, but not be able to fully close a sale. And so time management is critical. If you spend all of your time in a day chasing down new sales, you're not nurturing old sales, you're not nurturing clients in the pipeline, you're leaving things on the table that you need to focus. So he's got a great, I'm very unorganized when it comes to my own personal schedule. I wake up every morning and I look at it and I say, okay, I got to do this. It works for me. I've been doing it for 20 years. Probably not the best. It is really smart to say, I'm going to take 2 hours in this window and I'm going to cold call people. I've got my lists. I've got prospects. I'm going to go see who I can start filling up the pipeline with. The next 2 hours is going to be spent going back to people I've already been talking to. The next 2 hours is going to be spent talking to people in my network about whatever it is I'm doing. But having the time broken down in your day and not just waking up every day flying by the seat of your pants, because that's going to lead you nowhere real fast. What you're going to end up doing is spinning your gears month after month after month, still doing the same amount of work, but not closing anything. So the strategy here is very important. Building the proper team first, building your sales funnel, understanding the customer journey, that's a very critical piece to me. I'm cynical, I'm very picky. I don't like people pitching me things that I know what I want to buy. All of us, we know what we're going to buy already, right? I don't need somebody trying to close me on it. But the customer journey, when I put myself in the shoes of a potential customer for myself, being a picky person, I'm sure some of us in this room are the same way, right? How would I want to be sold to? If I'm going to buy my own product, how do I want to be pitched? How do I want to be sold? So thinking all these out, detailing them out is massive for your sales process. You have to understand the timing of the cycle. You know, if you need money tomorrow, but your sales cycle is 6 months, you better go look for something else. You better pull out a credit card, take a loan out, figure something out. So this right here is important for any business, any salesperson, whether you're starting your own business or you're working in the sales field. Massively important right here.
It's good. So you can probably skip this one because we covered a bunch and we got lots to go through. Oh, Gerber, baby, it's fun. I'm going to tell a cool story about how to know your client. So also same company, Cafe Press. I basically found out that the Gerber spoons were up for, the engraved spoons were up for bid, and I could get them. So I basically went to Jersey. I had 3 meetings in Jersey. All 3 are interesting stories, but I'll just do the Gerber one. And I met with the VP of merch for like clothing, baby clothes and whatnot. And I went in there with 10 spoons, one that had cut out parts in it, and they were all her kids. And she was like, "What? How did you find out?" I'm like, "You're on social. I'm on social. Like I stalked you. I'm sorry. I'm creepy. I'm a creeper." But it worked, right? Because I did my research and I figured out who it was, and I had all these different spoons, and she was stoked. And we ended up getting the Gerber account, and it led to customized diaper bags and customized baby clothes and all the monogramming and whatnot. So we did all of that. It was like a $15 million account. It was great. It was awesome. That led to me figuring out exactly how to dive a little deeper into the right salespeople or the right prospects when you're a salesperson. And I trained all my guys to do that. And I still talk to all of them. They're great. So, you know, dive a little deeper is the story, right?
So you're saying be creepy.
Be creepy. Do it. So CRM. How many of you guys use CRM? How many of you guys are in sales figuring out CRM? All right. So you get what you put in, right? So whatever's measured can't be counted. Or sorry, whatever's not measured can't be counted, right? So if you made 100 sales and the money came in, that's great. But it's not as clear as I made 100 sales. Each one took 7.3 calls. And then each of those 7.3 calls resulted in this outcome. Then you can better manage your time And you can hire people to repeat that process. If you're not doing that, it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to repeat that process, and it's hard to grow a business that you're not measuring, right? So CRM is very important. If you're like me, I don't like filling those things out. So I hire people so they can do that, so I don't have to. But I highly recommend you do it anyway if you're like me, and you have to figure that out.
It's like social media, right? If you're posting all the time, your audience is going to grow.
Right.
It's consistency. CRM is the same way. If you go there every single day, multiple times a day, and make a post, which is what you did, your following, your numbers, everything is just going to grow from there.
Exactly.
I also use CRM for fundraising.
Fundraising pipelines, I use them for a lot of things now. Because I don't know, I'm interactive, right? So I love dragging the tiles around. It makes me feel good, right? I gamify. I'm a gamer. Those are my big home runs in the gaming industry. So like, I don't know. I like seeing the numbers grow up in the closed side and the numbers not growing in the lost side. So. But I hate the CRMs. I'm terrible at it. Our COO, John, not John, but John Laurie, he yells at me constantly because I don't do them. I do it up here and I write things down and I've got all the data. I just don't. And I'm also not good at social media too, so go figure.
So outbound, hunter, inbound, farmer. These 2 different types of sales. Hybrid's pretty standard. Inbound's like a call center, like they're fielding inbound calls, right? That a marketing group has set up and made that a reality for them. A hunter is usually the outside sales guy. Goes, chases people down, sets up the meeting, has the lunches, all of that. Pay scales are substantially different. Just FYI, if anybody's looking, outside or a hunter is usually going to have a base of like 150 to as high as 350, and then inside sales guys, if you're in the Bay Area, you're like a 120 ish max. And OTE on track earnings could be as high as 200. But you want to be an outsider, you want to be a hunter, you want to be able to go to every single thing that you can, and again, always be closing, copies for closers, watch that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Glenn Ross, you should totally watch that show. But almost every company that is of scale, usually 10 million or more, has a hybrid approach because you want to be able to catch all, so that's the play. So we kind of covered a lot of this already. I'm going to just focus on 2 things. Building relationships, super important. Almost every deal that Wilbur has ever had has been referral. I think they've all been referral. We tried marketing a couple of times, and it's just pain. But if you do a good job, it's going to happen, and it's going to start to scale. Negotiation, really important on negotiation. Or actually, I didn't cover the relationship part. All of our referral base is from our network. So I have 20 years in startups. I know a lot of people, bless you. So because of that, when they found out that we had a dev shop, we started getting deals. When they found out we were doing consulting to help people raise, we started getting people coming to us. When we started fixing investments for investors, we started getting other investors calling us. We didn't even know, right? So just execute well and make sure you do what you say you're going to do when you said it, and then you're going to be solid. Negotiation tactics: never take the first offer, ever. Even if it's the best offer ever, just be like, hey, yo, let's just be on the same page here. You always want to make sure, because everybody's going to haggle with you. Very seldom do they not haggle, and almost always they do, especially when the numbers are big. So just be cognizant of that. Be thoughtful of that. And unless you're a SaaS play, because they can't haggle with a computer, right? So unless you're a SaaS play, just always remember to not take the first offer.
On that topic, best book I ever read on that is by a guy named Chris Voss. It's called Never Split the Difference. If you haven't gotten that one yet, you're nodding, you've read it. You can literally, she's read it. You can spot these people in a meeting and say, you read that book. It is phenomenal. He used to be a negotiator for the FBI, hostage situations, terrorism. He would come in, talk people off the ledges, get people out of terrible situations, turned it into the business world. Fantastic book. That will change your life in negotiations. just like you're saying, never take the first offer, never give the first offer, never
Yep.
give the first number. Usually going to lose. So many tips and tricks that you can use from that book alone. Highly recommended.
100%. He's also here in town, by the way. If you
Is he?
Yeah,
Nice.
he lives here. He's in the Ridges.
Nice.
Next one. Fun story.
Story time.
Okay, so all right. So these were all Cafe Press stories. This one was the last one. This is actually why I quit Cafe Press. I locked in Costco. So I don't know if you guys know, but Costco has hundreds of members, millions of members, hundreds of millions of members across multiple countries. And we locked in the print-on-demand business printing business for all their business members, which was a ridiculous number of people. It was like 90 million people. It's like stupid, like how many business owners that had Costco accounts. So the reason why I left was we locked it in, we filed our IPO, we went public, and I wanted to exercise my shares. So I knew this deal was going to happen 3 months after I left because I brokered it. I did the deal. I was going to get commission for the next 4 years on it. And I could sell my shares. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because I want you guys to not count your eggs before they're hatched. Because I did that. That's where this is going. So I was very excited, and that was going to change my entire world. It would have made me about $80 million based on the math.
Here right now is what he's saying.
I would. I'd still
Just
be doing
joking.
this.
He
I
actually
love
totally
doing this.
would. Yeah.
I have a problem. I'm like addicted to startups. But where I'm going with this is the CEO after I left of Cafe Press fought this opportunity. He won the top line sale, and he wasn't willing to take the small, $30 million a year it was going to generate. His margin. Anyway, because we were going public, he wanted to capture it on the top end. The reason why this is important is Costco said no, and they were in a five-year hold, right? So they couldn't compete with Cafe Press. They couldn't go find another solution. So I get a phone call 5 years later from the COO of Costco, and I was like, "Hey Jim, what's up?" And they were like, "Hey, do you still want to do this?" And I'm like, "I'm not there anymore." And this is what led to Project Wilbur, being a pig and a flying pig at that. We started Project Wilbur. I brought in the GM from Cafe Press, and that led to the creation of Project Wilbur. And we went in, we did a discovery with Costco, because it's been 5 years. Technology's changed. They actually relaunched their Costco.com a couple of times. And we went down a path of trial and error over 4 months, figuring out what they wanted, figuring out how they wanted to address this problem. And it was us and Harlan Clark, who does the customized checks. And we lost to them. But this is a great story because it led to what Wilbur became, which is a problem-solving platform. But it also gave us an opportunity to find out exactly what Costco wanted. So we've done side deals with Costco ever since. My point of this story is always make sure that you've got the money in the bank. A signed deal doesn't mean it's closed, right? And even if you're making the best projection as to what could happen, it's still a projection until it's real. So that's the point of the story. But it led to a lot of good things. So we can skip ahead because we're running a little long.
Sure. Which one? Tell me when to stop.
Here, let me see. I'll take over.
Go for it.
Any questions while I'm looking ahead? Am I holding this wrong?
Middle button. Middle button.
That's what I'm pressing.
Other way. You want me to do it again?
Yeah, I apparently don't know what I'm doing. Which one's the middle button? It's this one, right?
This one. So it wasn't user error.
Ah,
There you
see?
go. Battery died.
All right. Well,
You
we'll
got it
switch
from there
sides. So overcoming objections in general is really just about listening. If you're listening well, think about it like AI, right? You prompt a question, you get an answer. The answer is longer than your question, hopefully, if you ask the right question. And it gives you data, right? That is exactly how a sales process should be. So you go through and you ask a question, you start listening. You start becoming a therapist, you start listening. I can't tell you how many friends or clients at the time, now friends, were going through divorces while I was trying to sell them. And then I ended up being their therapist, listening to all the issues that were happening, right? You just always have to wind it back to what your goal is. So you're clear and concise and it makes sense, but you listened, which makes them be receptive. So we talked about relationships. It is not just transactions. The play with all sales is about solving problems. So if you start solving problems for people, like real problems that matter, and you're not just trying to get their dollar, then they're going to come back to you. Not just for the sale, but for like referrals and solving problems for you. Because that's like a better way to be anyway, right? So that's basically how we've grown. So how many of you think you're great at negotiations? No? So I got some smiling, some nodding. All right. So you should read that book, Split the Difference. You should also
Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference. And then you should also watch the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, which is great on sales. And then you should also there's another book called How to Win Friends and Influence Others, or something like that by yes, whoever said that. Read that book. It's really about listening. It's about being an active listener and making sure that people can really be impacted by your presence. These are all important books and things that you should pay attention to. But the win-win solutions is really like what it comes down to. Like when you solve a problem and you're executing, then you have now provided a value, and then they're willing to pay you. So now you've executed, right? You provided a solution. You got it to work. Awesome. The Game of Thrones. All right, so this is a cool story. This is my last one. So, okay, so that Gerber story brought me to New Jersey, got me to go to 30 Rock, not to see Gerber. Gerber was in Jersey. 30 Rock's New York. And I'm trying to get the licensing deal with NBC. Now, this is before the Game of Thrones came out. This is when it was, the Game of Thrones is the first book of the Song of Fire and Ice. I had no idea who any of these people were. This is 2009, right? Didn't know about the book series. I didn't know George R. R. Martin existed. I didn't know any of this. So I go up. I got a bag of bagels. This is my thing, right? So I would go in with bagels and cream cheese, and I'd be like, hey, I'm here to see the CMO, right, or head of licensing. And I just sit there. I'm head of sales at Cafe Press. Let's talk to whoever. And I would sit there and wait. And hey, do you have an office I could use? And I just sit there and like shoot emails off. Hey, what's your Wi-Fi? And I would just sit there with bagels, and I'd be giving people food. And they were always quite happy that I was there because they didn't want to go get bagel. I'd like go down the elevator. So I got to know the CMO's assistant pretty well, and I found out she liked Game of Thrones. And I was like, what the hell is this? So I'm sitting there searching what this is, and then I found out that the assistant her kid was in karate and all this stuff. Anyway, so we became friends. I connected with her. I go back to San Mateo, which is where our headquarters was. And George R. R. Martin is signing books in Half Moon Bay, which is like 20 minutes away from San Mateo. So I go there and I get 8 books signed, right? Send her 4 of them. And there you go. A month later, we had the account. So my point is active listening. Ask questions, solve problems.
He's saying it's easy.
I'm saying it's easy if you apply the right levers. It's easy if you try with the research. You got to just put in the effort, right? If you just pick up a phone or send out a bunch of emails, you'll fail. You got to know what you're saying. You got to know how you're doing it.
Be genuine and have fun is what it sounds like I'm hearing from you.
That's right. And solve problems. Getting into sales is always fun. So,
and make sure you follow up.
Yeah. So that's you pitch, you ask for the sale, you follow up with a contract. You don't follow up 3 weeks later. You don't follow up 3 days later. You follow it up that day or within 24 hours. Because the longer you wait, the less likely they're going to buy.
Well, on that topic, there's cadences that you will find. Test them out, right? What I found personally, you have and it depends on the meeting type, right? If it's a sales, maybe you give them 48 hours or 24 hours. Investors, and even on the sales side, what I've ended up doing is we have the meeting. I'll send an email right after, and it's bullet pointing and detailing out what this email was about. One, it's going to record and lock in everything you guys talked about. But two, it's going to give you the next follow-up, right? Always don't leave that email closed. Always have some follow-ups, next steps. Here's what's going on. I'm going to follow up with you in a couple of days, check back in with you, give you time to digest. Follow back up. Whenever you tell them, make sure, set an alarm. Make it automated. There's something on your side that says, go email this person. But when you start doing that and you get these cadences down, it becomes second nature. You stop really even thinking about it and you just do them. But that keeps, the flow going. And what I forget what they say is 7 touch points for every sale. So when you go and you reach out to somebody, don't follow back up with them right away and say, "Hey, did you think about what we talked about?" Ask them a question. "What's up, dude? How you doing?" And then leave it at that. And then come back in the next day or 2 days from then. "Hey, let's follow up. You got time?" Be a real person. Be a human with people, right? Just be genuine. But you'll find the flow and the cadence that works for you. But I see so many people drop the ball on this. They say they're going to follow up and they don't, and you lose me right away. I'm not going to bother or waste my time anymore from there.
Totally agree. So we're near the end of this, but and I appreciate everybody's patience because we have a lot to cover. I can probably make this in like 4 talks.
Hey, we'll throw a plug to the SDR class. Come check it out.
Well, this is just like generic sales stuff right now. The SDR thing is literally just getting an appointment, and that's like we built it out as a 10-week course with complex like different components to it. So that's pretty cool. So the hardest person to hire for is a sales guy or gal or person. So there you go. So I've gotten pretty good at it over the years, but the thing that you want to make sure when you're hiring people is have deliverable KPIs. And if they don't hit them, they know they're not going to be there anymore, right? So they know, like it's one of the only jobs where you can definitively say you have to do X, and you can build a ramp to how they're going to get there, and their reward should be so clear as to what they're going to get, right? If you can't communicate to that salesperson that you're trying to hire, hey, you're going to make 10% of every sale. Oh, and if you sell X, you're going to make 12, right? And if you sell X plus 10, you're gonna make 14%, right? If you can't make that communicate that, or whatever your version of that is, you don't know your numbers well enough. You don't know your business well enough. You need to solve those problems before you go hire somebody else, because that's really important. You have to know what you can actually give to somebody else and what that's worth. How much time would you save if you didn't have to sell, and you could hire somebody else to do that for you, right? And then what is that worth? And then how do you scale that? Like, these are questions you have to figure out.
And this goes into the sales process. Before you think about hiring a salesperson, you better have sold yourself multiple times, whatever your product is, and be able to say definitively, here's the process, here's how long it's going to take, and be able to go on that journey with them, because they're probably going to shadow you, and you don't want to spend now half of your time managing this person's time, setting their daily life, and still having to build your business, and still having to sell yourself. So the perfect time to hire a salesperson is when it's being too much for you, and it's taking away from the real core of what you need to be doing for your business.
Right.
You've got the process, you've got literally the package that you can just hand to somebody and say, go sell this, repeat this.
Exactly. You can skip this one. And that's us. So the play with the moral of this lesson, if you will, or thing you can take away from, is always be selling, always be communicating the problem, the solution, the team. And when you're going down addressing that with whether it's an investor or a client or whatever, fill in the gap. Be concise. You're pitching to your grandmother every time. right? You're think about, let's say you're raising money. Let's just go back to raising money for a second. Who has money to invest? Majority of them. People in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? So if you're pitching how AI will be transformative and you're going to create a new way to do CAD drawings that is going to be compelling on how robots are going to create automation on the assembly line, what? Know your audience. It's true whether it's an investor or it's someone you're selling to, right? And if it's complex, make it simple. Be complex in due diligence. Make it simple now, right? Like DD is all about finding out the complexities. Any questions? Yeah.
Any tips for deals that stall in the pipeline? So you're like getting there, then they reach some point of indecision. Any tips?
Set a time in which you rip the Band-Aid, or else you will be having these questions 6 months from now. Like, not every deal is a good deal. Try, and again, when you know the process and you know your timing, a sale should take, in this regard, 60 days. And if you're at day 90, hey, maybe you send them the Dear John, walk off a cliff email. Hey, last chance, dude. Like, we're crushing it over here. Do you like us or not? And if not, move on.
So 100% agree with all of that. The other thing you can do is when you send that Dear John, they're like, no, we're totally going to move forward. We're just waiting for this. Okay, well, your price is good for another 20 days, right? And if you don't make a deposit of 25% of whatever it is, I can't guarantee your price, right? And then all of our contracts, whenever we send anything out, has a 30-day window for whatever the thing is. So we create the FOMO built into that, right? So that's my advice, right? Also, really research that client, because if they did express interest, then their 5 competitors would be great clients for you, right? Anybody else? Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I like what you said about, like, obviously, like, relationships and all that kind of stuff. And I love the Game of Thrones story and language and all that. What tips do you have or advice or whatever in terms of making the transition from, if you want to call it the gatekeeper of family offices, into actually getting to a decision maker?
Well, family offices are harder. So I'll make it really simple, quick. Family offices are like the guys that invest in VCs. So if you're a family office, you're putting money in as an LP into a VC. Family offices are way more guarded than a venture capitalist, because a venture capitalist is supposed to deploy the money. So like even the last 12 months where everybody's having a hard time raising, VCs have to deploy. They have a schedule. They made a promise. They have fiduciary responsibility based on what they committed to, based on the money they raised. So a VC will always be deploying. The valuations might not be as good, but they'll always be deploying as long as they have dry powder. Family office will do whatever they want, right? So the trick with anything is relationships. Family office is more warm knob, getting the someone to warm the intro and all of that. I got into family offices because I started solving problems. The story was I was actually, and I'll be really quick about this, I had a trampoline park and I had partners that were going through a divorce, and I was trying to figure out how to get them bought out. So I went to every high net worth person in Vegas to try to get them to buy them out. And when I did, the response I got was, hey, that's cool. Not really into trampoline parks, but with startups, I invested in this one startup. Can you look at that for me? Because it's not working, right? And I started fixing startups. And that's, how I got in with all the family offices. Because I only raised VC prior to that. So that's the story.
To answer your question, sorry,
You're good. Do it.
You have to know who that person is, right? Is it a person that's egotistical, like I'm the gatekeeper to this family office? What are you going to give me? Maybe they're that type of a person. Maybe it's literally just the trust, because that gatekeeper, if they bring one bad deal to that family office, maybe they lose that relationship forever themselves. So there's something there. Maybe you could just ask them, what's it going to take for me to pitch them? What do you need from me?
Right.
Do you want in on the deal on my side? I'll make you an advisor to my company. I will, provided the family invests. dangle the carrot, right? Usually that extra incentive goes a long way with the gatekeeper. A lot of them are egotistical. They want to be fluffed up. Tell them they look pretty or something. Find out what drives them and then give them that thing. Dangle it. Don't give it to them right away. To his point, when the money is in the account, they get what they want.
Right. So better answer than mine, but definitely on the thing that worked for me with gatekeepers in the past, gift cards, gift baskets, complex like boxes of treats and things. Like we did that a bunch of times. Raised for a IoT company that was doing a augmented reality. We sent out 4 sets and a couple of videos as to how that worked with a screen that was already teed up to play. So as they turn it on, it would play. So things like that could be compelling to get the meeting. And it usually bypasses the gatekeeper because they just deliver the box. So, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Solo founder, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
What would you recommend for like how to scale before your presentation slide on hire that first salesperson or that first employee? Tips before.
Well, I mean, so you should sell. Like you should go out and figure out how much time it takes, what the call frequency needs to be. Like once you know, then you can hold the salesperson accountable because you were able to do it. And if they're just a salesperson, like that's their focus, to just sell, not run the business, not make sure the IT team is doing what they're supposed to do, or the dev shop's doing what they're supposed to do, or anything else, or making sure you're reporting to the board or the finance. Like if they're just doing what they're supposed to do, selling, which is 100% of their job, they should be doing it faster than you. So you've now got a basis, like this is the baseline. I made 37 calls, I made 1 sale, right? So you now have a baseline. That's a metric. Hold them accountable, right? That's the whole KPI thing.
What about other facets?
Other facets of what?
In a business when you're starting, not just the sales aspect, like building the actual product.
Well, hire a lawyer. Make sure everything gets papered, because I learned that the hard way. Not through lawsuits or whatnot, just through problems that took time. And time when you're a startup, the whole thing with the startup is you want to be first to market. You want to solve this problem before anyone else realizes it's a problem, right? So just do things that are smart. So like the lean startup goes through a kind of a whole walkthrough of how to do this. The Scrum method is great, especially when you're working with a team, because you do these 15-minute stand-ups with your team. We do that every day. The main things to look out for is your money, your burn rate, right? If you're going to do your own project, you want to do your own startup, you want to plan for 6 to 12 months of runway, right? So if you're self-funding that, whatever that means for you, figure that out. And then you want to have a plan before you quit your job. You want to have I know it's going to take this is KPIs for me for success, right? And hire a lawyer to write all the paperwork, do an operating agreement, all that stuff. Even if you're a solo founder, you want to have all of that stuff put together so that you're not figuring it out on the fly. When you do want to bring somebody in, it's better to write an addendum to something that exists, that has protections in it, than it is to write something from scratch, because then you have to negotiate with the new guy that's coming in, and you don't want to do that, right? So
Let me ask a question. Is your product already made?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Do you have sales now already? No.
So right now it's actually trying to figure out route to market. Now that I have the product set up, we can scale it and also get it out there into the market. I just been doing a lot of research on what is it that I'm actually where in the market I want to start first. I know different opportunities who I'm selling to, but I'm selling to customers, suppliers, distributors, all over the place there. So trying to see what's going faster.
What you could do, you might think about instead of thinking about hiring one individual, there are agencies that are out there or marketing groups. I don't know what your industry is, but chances are there's a group of people that are already selling products of that type. Find them, reach out to them, and then tell them, hey, here's what I'm doing that's a little different that you guys might be able to add into your portfolio. Work a deal with them, have other people out there getting your initial sales for you, so that way you can get the data back from them. They'll report back to you, say, here's what's working, here's what's not working. You'll get some sales coming in, and then if you don't, you also have that data and say, okay, well, why weren't they buying this product from here? But that does a couple of things for you. It gets you the sales, you're getting that data, but you're not paying the employee. They're gonna go work on your behalf. Oftentimes, you know, as a startup, you don't wanna go and pay them, you know, 25 grand a month and, you know, go bring us a bunch of sales, right? They'll do it commission based, right? So at the earliest stages, this is where it goes into getting people fired up about what you're doing. You'll find a person that is making money on their own. They've already got their deals. They get recurring revenues. They like what you're doing. They like you. They see your product, and they'll go sell it for you for free. Just knowing, oh, I've already got places I can put this. Go find those people, and you'll do it freely.
Can I add something? If you don't know which group of users want your product the most, try finding as many people as possible in those groups and talk to them. Ask them. That's the best way. Just ask them.
Yeah, customer interviews are huge, and you want to make sure that when you're talking to each one of the groups, that you are listening to what questions they're asking you and what their problems are, so you can ask another group with the same questions. So you can start doing apples to apples comparisons. Really important. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Sounds like
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate everyone coming out.
Just want to thank both Brian and John from Project Wilbur and all of you for your attention tonight. And after you learned a lot about sales, remember we can have a free training. Go to startup.vegas/SDR for sales development representative. Oh, I just put this in more. And there's you want some food and drink, there's something extra. We're going to be cleaning up, but feel free to network a little bit. And thank you again for coming tonight.
There's a very well-behaved dog sitting in a little bag right there.